Across the church in America today, a new movement is rising, where faith leads finance and clarity drives impact. I'm Roger Aguinaldo, the founder of the Catholic Faith Investors Summit and the Catholic FI Alliance, a membership community of investors focused on faith-based investing aligned with Catholic social teaching. Join the leaders transforming stewardship into mission. This is where faithful investing begins and the future of Catholic investment takes shape. This is a fireside chat from 2025 Catholic Faith Investors Summit in October 2025 in New York City. This fireside chat is called Rerum Novarum and its implications in asset management with Father Séamus Finn from the Oblates of Mary Immaculate in conversation with Daniel Catone from Arimathea.
Hello, Father. We've never met.
Hey there. Now we have.
I'm Dan Catone. Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
I hope our mics are working. We have the opportunity to talk about a document from 1891 today.
Yeah, not bad, huh?
Yeah. Well, I had a bottle of wine last night at dinner, so it feels like 1891 in my brain. But in all seriousness, this is a great honor to be with you today and have this discussion with everybody. And I was joking a little bit with Cardinal Turkson about the document that he created, giving me a career. But it's largely true. But
Sure.
I think it goes all the way back to Rerum Novarum. And perhaps, Father, you could start by telling us the intention of Pope Leo XIII in creating that document.
Well, I think especially for all history buffs, Leo XIII was Pope from 1878 to 1903, a period of great turmoil, if you were following history in Europe particularly, and particularly the Industrial Revolution that was going on. And it was into the midst of that Pope Leo wrote Rerum Novarum, and certain things he wanted to emphasize, and commented on lots of different issues while he was doing this. So the two great themes of Catholic social teaching throughout history have been church and state, church and society. And we all remember the great battles between the Holy Roman Emperor, the Pope, Henry IV at Canossa, and all of those tensions that went on as they were trying to come to sort of agreement and common direction. But church and society was kind of left to the side, but it was into that question that Pope Leo XIII wanted to enter, because he was particularly concerned about how much capital was controlling what was going on in the world. Whether it's robber barons, whether it was high net worth individuals who were seemingly dictating what policy should be going forward. He was concerned about the worker and what the position of the worker in all of this was in terms of the usual things: wages, safety, home life, rest.
Leisure, yeah.
Leisure, working hours. And it's funny because obviously my name betrays my origin here. I came from Ireland in 1964 to Lowell, Massachusetts. And what a strange town Lowell, Massachusetts is, right? If any of you have been up there, it was considered to be the Venice of America, right? And also considered to be the home or the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution in the United States, because we have canals all over the place. I don't know how many miles of canals we have in Lowell, but that was where there was an incubation of some of the technology that they went and borrowed, I guess, from Manchester and from England, brought it over and looked for a place along the Merrimack River where they could indeed duplicate what was going on. And that's where, if you still go there today, you see the different buildings that were erected at the time for the workers, where they were living, but where they were working as well. And so that kicked off that whole question about what about the worker and where does the worker fit? And we obviously know that Karl Marx had one perspective on this that was fast moving across Europe. And the Pope also wanted to weigh in on the primacy of the worker, the importance, the dignity of the worker, and how is the worker being protected in the course of this industrial revolution. And I think that's kind of set the stage for much of the conversation that has gone on since.
Yeah.
And it's still, I mean, when we look at this great debate that we're having here in the US about ESG, ES is right in the middle of this. And the social question has always been an important one for the church because it focuses on the person and human dignity. The E part comes in with a loud megaphone when Pope Francis published Laudato Si and puts the two as two key priorities. Are we taking account of the impact of our decisions, financial decisions, on the environment and on the worker? And where does the worker get to express or protect or assure that they're getting paid a fair wage, but also having enough to make a livelihood and to support whoever is dependent on it?
It's a fascinating document in a lot of ways. It was published on May 15th, the feast day of St. Isidore.
That's right.
Yeah, I know that.
Isidore the farmer.
That's right. Yeah, he's the patron of my own farm and ranch that I live on. We have a life-size painting of him actually in our house. But May 15th is an auspicious date for us. And this document of new things, of course, Rerum Novarum means of new things, I think is particularly appropriate for our day and age because of new things. If you think about the milieu of the economic situation in the 1890s, you have industrial revolution in full force, where we have the degradation of the rights of workers, child labor, the spreading of socialism all across the world, and Holy Mother Church pushing back against that. Today, we have kind of a similar environment in some ways. While it isn't socialism, perhaps, that's spreading all over the world, this sort of Frankenstein-like capitalist creature that we've created is marrying to the technological advancements that we have in artificial intelligence, which has a particular threat, as Cardinal Turkson was saying, against the worker, as workers will be displaced and set aside as we have the rise of artificial intelligence. So, Father, perhaps you can elucidate us on some of the practical applications of Rerum Novarum in today's world relative to these new things that we're now seeing.
Yeah, I always found it was a strange title for a document of new things when I first
nothing new about it now.
Started to study about it. Yes, indeed, nothing new about it. And Pope Leo XIV, as you know, he was clear why he chose that name, because he was very much connected to the teaching of Pope Leo XIII and the time in which he was living. Pope Leo XIV has also said, well, one of the next great challenges is artificial intelligence. And they've created a special committee at the Vatican that is continuing to reflect on this. And as Cardinal Turkson mentioned, I suspect we will see something from Pope Leo XIV on this question pretty soon. But I think some of the key issues Cardinal Turkson already mentioned, and our engagement with the tech sector continues to be around issues of privacy, continues to be around issues of transparency, and protecting human agency. Where indeed in all of these algorithms that are being produced, all of these data that's being generated, where does the human person actually is their perspective and their control of this process? Where is it obvious? I remember in the 1970s, I think there was a number of issues of magazines that said, "Who will play God?" Right? And that was around much around medical science and medical issues, but it was very much going to the core of the question of saying, where in this process is there really engagement and human input to the question? And as we develop algorithms, as we create chatbots that will write papers for us or give us quick talking points if we're going to a meeting and we just blanked out on what we should be saying, it's there and it can offer them. And sometimes, as we also discussed, how can we be somewhat assured that it's actually believable, that it's real, that it's factual? And those are the obvious, on either side of this, we're trying to wrestle with those issues. Me and my colleagues at the Interfaith Center for Corporate Responsibility, we've engaged with a number of these tech companies because we know how powerful they are. I was thinking yesterday, remember the time when we would go to the software store and buy a disk, bring it home and load it on our computer, and now it seems like we just pull it out of thin air.
Yeah.
And it's all of a sudden it's on there, whether you asked for it or not.
Completely dematerialized.
That's right, totally. So I think that's kind of one of the key issues that we have to deal with, and it's affecting across so many different areas in life. I grew up from the age of about 9 till I was left Ireland at 14 on a farm. So I know an awful lot about farming, about cows, about agriculture, about sheep and pigs and all those sort of things.
You should come visit us.
I would like to, love to. And St. Isidore is a favorite of mine. He's got a beautiful church in Rome, managed by the Franciscans. But I was taken from there into the midst of Lowell, Massachusetts, one of the sites of the Industrial Revolution. I'm saying, what happened to me? But yet, it's come full circle. I think we've now taken on, as Rerum Novarum does, we've now taken on a deep concern for the care of the planet. As Pope Francis says, the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor are linked, intertwined in a way that we have only begun to understand. So it pushes us into the whole area of what we eat, how we take care of planet, how we distribute food, how I've got 2 or 3 people living with me in Washington. I'm getting reports on what amount of grams of protein are in the drink that's there, or in the meal that you just ate, or who's counting this. So metrics are all over the place.
I count them.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, you look like you do a good job.
Thank you very much. Wow, gosh, you get a compliment from a priest. This is a good day for me.
So I think what we've slowly, over the years, at least in my experience, has begun to have these conversations with corporations. Church and society is the major theme in the private sector. And we had to elbow our way into some of these conversations.
Absolutely.
Because it felt like, whether it was a bank or a mining company or a retail company, they felt like, well, we're trying to tell them how to do their business. And we would say, we're not trying to tell you how to do your business, but we'd like you to look at some things, some stories, some experiences that you're probably missing and that might help to improve your company. We're not trying to put you out of business because, as you know, many of us are shareholders in these companies. So that would be absolutely going in the wrong direction. So engagement, first of all, we did the whole exclusion piece of companies that we didn't want to be associated with. Engagement, which is mentioned in Rerum Novarum, was our strength, was developing an expertise on particular issues, contacting the company, could be filing a stockholder resolution, could be attending the annual general meeting and speaking there, and doing that as faith-based investors. Much of our work and my work over the years has been interfaith. And I'm delighted to see that because it has pushed all of us to look back at what are the founding scriptures saying. And Cardinal Turkson was excellent in that comment this morning, that we need to look at the scripture, then we need to look at the experience in history, then we need to look at what is your mission and what are you trying to achieve? Is return on investment your primary concern? Do you want to know about how your investments are enhancing and caring for the planet? Do you want to know how the workers in the companies that you're invested, how they're being treated? Very simple kinds of questions, but it expands the ROI into a whole other area.
It should, because our investments are eternal, the ones that actually matter. So at Arimathea, I host a podcast with Dr. Pia de Saleni and Dr. Christopher Bloom and soon to be Dr. Chris Owens. And we actually talked about Rerum Novarum one day for about an hour and a half together. And one of the arguments that Dr. Saleni was making is definitional. That if you look at Rerum Novarum, it's really pushing against the socialist communist definition of what is a man, what is a person, which is really just the transition of the human person into a worker only. And that's just a cog in the machine, in the dialectic and all of those types of things. And if you think about it today, Father, the world is trying to redefine what a man is again. And rather than being a cog in the machine, they've turned us into a consumer. And artificial intelligence, I think, has the ability to redefine what a person is as a consumer of this information, and largely as kind of irrelevant, that the human person just kind of becomes the means by which money is transferred. And I think there's great danger there. Specifically, what I want to address, relative, I don't know how it's relevant to Rerum Novarum per se, but Meta had a leak of their ethics. Did you see that? Well, they had their ethics for artificial intelligence leaked about a month ago, which would permit artificial intelligence to have a sexual conversation with children as young as 8 and 13.
I did see that.
Okay, so Dr. Seleni and I are creating a white paper on this subject to create protections for minors. And so it's an interesting connection, because here we have Rerum Novarum, which was being written to protect workers and minors in work, and actual minors digging up things, so multiple types of minors. But today, we also need to protect minors against them being turned into things to be consumed by technology.
Sure.
So can you maybe talk a little bit about this sort of redefinition of man that both happened in Rerum Novarum and might be happening today?
Well, it's a real challenge, right? I spent most of last week in Arequipa in Peru, which is considered to be one of the mining centers of the world. Companies from all over the world had on display these unbelievable machines that will now do the actual mining underground or wherever you're doing it, whether it's for gold or for the tin or copper. And every year you go to these conventions and there are new machines, and they'll do better, and they'll replace another dimension of what the traditional miners in these areas. And I think what it says to me, and so much of it is that there was a virtual mine there as well, actually, that you could walk through. So it does kind of push us, I think, into trying to wrestle with what can we take and how can we learn from, the engagement with local communities, the engagement with workers, allow workers to be involved in the process of discussion and of what they can contribute, how the work is meaningful, how it gives their life purpose, and which are all so important because they go home to their families and their kids are asking them, well, what did you do all day? And whether it's in the mining community in particular, it's somewhat easy because it's physical and it's right there, and it's a huge part of what all of us depend on. But actually in the progress of civilization and in for our time, how does it contribute to the common good? How does it contribute to building responsible, sustainable futures? And I know that whole question about many companies now have created sustainability departments, chief sustainability officers. So it's not that we're looking for investments whereby the return the next quarter or the next year is going to surpass the return from last year, but we also want to know in terms of the purpose and what we contributed to the common good, how the product we're making, whether you're talking with Target or Walmart, all those companies out there. I focus for the most part in my 40 years involved in this area on banks and on mining companies. And I've been down.
Which one's worse? It's a tough call, isn't it?
Well, I think over the years, what I've learned for sure is the relationship is important. Learning from one another. And quite often the same person who's representing the company across the table, they have a family that they go home to.
Sure.
They have a church or a temple or a mosque that they attend. And they want to feel like that's connected to who they are and what they're doing. So what was initially kind of a wall between us has become very much a very, very exciting and interesting engagement where we're searching for solutions together. And I know we've had the rock stars in the CEO world of Sandy Weil and Citigroup having their annual meeting at Radio City Music Hall. So I couldn't quite get my head around that. I didn't know if he was performing on stage or if he was actually giving us the annual report from the company. But you still have a little bit of both. Yeah. But you have the power of somebody like Jamie Dimon or Brian Moynihan at Bank of America.
Yeah.
But these are real people that we've engaged in across the table. And we've brought the faith concerns that we have, human rights concerns, human dignity. And we have found that conversation, as Cardinal Turkson mentioned earlier, that engagement to be to be beneficial, I think, on both sides.
Well, it's hugely beneficial. I mean, I know we worked with our research company in coordination to move Verizon to matched corporate donations for religious institutions. Yeah. And so what we have found is engagement is very effective. Because our assumption is, these gentlemen on this board, they don't care about anything. Right. That's not the truth. The truth is they are just ordinary people, just like you and I. And some of them are devout Catholics, and want to be able to push the mission of Christ forward. So, Father, as we only have a minute and a half left or so, can you talk more about Rerum Novarum and its usefulness today in investments specifically? Because I think one of the beautiful things about Rerum Novarum is its scope, and it's so big and so political in a way. But here we have the sort of modern situation is not really a political threat, but an economic threat, this redefinition that I'm talking about. So can you maybe talk more about the investment implications that we have with Rerum Novarum, specifically with the worker?
Well, I think most importantly, what Leo XIII did in the document was to identify primary issues, like I mentioned, private property, the workers, the safety of the worker, the wages, the living wage kinds of questions. And remembering and focusing on that is still very important, because we know there are lots of new companies created on a regular basis. Some of them are all online, or some of them are delivering services of different kinds. But you still have somebody in there in the office and somebody in there who's actually trying to make sense of what it is they're doing and what benefit is it for society. And I think focusing on the worker is extremely important.
Yeah, I think it is absolutely critical. And I'll just maybe leave with this one idea. And that is, especially as investment managers here, all of us are, I think, most of us are investment managers, that we are not at service to money, we are at service to people. And everything that we do in our day-to-day work for these people needs to be referenced in the context that we are touching people's souls by touching their money. That's how deadly serious this work is. And we should be so grateful to Pope Leo XIII for giving us this beautiful document. And I'm very grateful for this discussion with you today. Thank you.
And I think very important for those of you who have clients who are religious, sisters, brothers, priests, whatever, colleges, universities, they are more and more focused on trying to be clear about their mission.
Yeah.
Their founders brought them together 200 years ago, 300 years ago, to work in medical care, to work in education, to work in service to women in different corners of the world. And more those religious groups, that's the core of what they're doing. And how to help them to move that mission along wherever in the world they're doing it is really important for asset managers and for those who advise them. Because that's where we get the juice, as I think anyway. Yeah. That's where we get the energy in terms of visiting those, or reading those narratives, watching those clips on TV, watching the examples of what they're doing in different countries in the world, and bringing that to life and telling those stories is extremely important.
What an opportunity we have to change the world through our work.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daniel. All right.
This year's summit proved what's possible when faith shapes investment. In the next year, we go further, uniting more Catholic leaders ready to invest with purpose, integrity, and grace. Join us in New York City, September 16th and 17th, 2026. Shape the legacy, live the calling. Visit our website for the Catholic FI Alliance at catholicfi.com to learn more.